So you build it, you secure it, maybe introduction to DevSecOps, we'll see. I'm John Willis, Loop. I've done a lot of stuff. This is a 50-minute presentation that I've got to turn into 30 minutes. So go find me. I was at Chef early, got to sell a company to Dell, I sold a company to Docker. I've been part of this organization for quite a while. On the selection committee, I was the first, only American at the first DevOps days. I got to be involved in the handbook, and then a labor of love, my partner in crime, Damon Edwards. By the way, he doesn't want to brag about it, but they got funding yesterday for Rundeck, so yeah. But don't tell him I sold you, because he actually doesn't want to brag, so he told me, no, John, don't go ahead and brag about it. So he's my best friend, so. All right, so we'll have a little fun, right? Like I was in, I'm going to blame this on John Rez here from his keynote, but I wasn't going to do this, because I don't have a whole lot of time. But I was at Alibaba Cloud. It was a keynote, big deal. And for some reason I made this horrible, I don't know. And those crazy dudes, fellows over at Sensu decided they'd have a little fun with me. They didn't let up. There we go. And now they find other posts of me that they meme and okay, yeah, all right. And then then this, and I thought, okay, all right, it's over. Enough is enough, folks. And then what happens yesterday? Thank you, John. All right. So, a little bit of seriousness. How many people have heard this phrase? Quite a few, right? So it was actually in 2006. They were interviewing Werner Vogals of the CTO and still the CTO of Amazon. And he was saying at Amazon, remember this is pre-coined the name DevOps. He said at Amazon we do things differently. Our developers don't throw it over the wall. He said, and then a long list of things. And he said, we have this thing where you build it, you run it, meaning that it's a service. Everybody owns the operationalization of the service. Great. DevOps started. And it was great because it fit exactly what we were talking about. Like early days, we talked about developers wearing pages, ownership as the whole thing, collaboration, dev and ops working together. So we got to Agile, right? This is my short, brief history of the world. So Agile was awesome, right? Like it did all these things. It got the developers, right? But I've been an operations person my whole career, and it's like, what are those guys doing over there, right? And it was and all of a sudden, bang! Hey, we got all this stuff. I'm like, okay, February, April, right? They didn't invite operations to the party, right? I mean, that was the thing, right? There was all this stuff about going fast and Agile under manifesto, and it was my perspective, wrong or right, was, boy, I wish we would have known about what you were doing. And so that was really kind of the birth of, hey, DevOps. Right? We said, DevOps, hey, man, we're going to, John Allspar did the 10 deploys of Flickr at Velocity in 2009. It was a seminal event. Gene talks about this all the time. I joke, I was in the room, people were throwing up in the back of the room, you can't do that, that's horrible. How could you 10 productions a day to, So, about 2 years ago, I was asked, this doesn't happen a lot, it's the way I dress, whatever, to go to a high-level executive in a bank to tell them what DevOps was. And it was okay, let me do this. So I put 15 slides together. And it was like the green room thing, I'll never be on Letterman or whoever, Jimmy Fallon. But there was this green room thing, and they reviewed my slides, and they're like, you got 5 minutes. And there's a picture I use, I've gotten rid of it now, but in another presentation where the kid with the spaghetti all over his face, and my highfalutin, I'm the DevOps guy. I'm I'm an imposter. I couldn't explain DevOps in 5 minutes. I couldn't. The joke now is if somebody busts in the door and says, Jamie Dimon needs you right now. You've got to tell them about DevOps. I'd be like, oh, I can't go. So I spent a year thinking about why I'm an imposter. And I'm still an imposter. I could never go in and do the 3-minute Jamie Dimon pitch. I would fail miserably. I mean, probably laugh and have a good time, but this is the best I came up with. And so this is my definition. Like it, love it, doesn't matter. It's mine. DevOps is a set of practices and patterns that turn human capital into high-performing organization. In other words, it's not about the technology, stupid. And I promise you I'm going to get the security. And there's my son. I don't know if you've ever been to the horseshoe. It's like really cool. Like I used to have a corny presentation, take the risk. It's 4,000-foot drop. It's like the most insane thing ever. So we have the DevOps handbook. You've heard it over and over and over. Continuous delivery, all the things. I mean, like everything here has been talked about by like this is a great conference, right? It is. Yes. Come on, give me a yeah, hell yeah. Come on, man. All right. So with culture, right? Again, let's get the behavior right. And one of the things that we learned, like early, and like I said, I was at the first DevOps days in. Let me check my time. At the first DevOps days in Ghent, it felt like a renaissance. There were only less than 50 people there. 8 months later, Damon and I and a couple other people decided to try to run one in the US. There were 300 people in Mountain View. And that one in Mountain View was, I mean, so I am pretty old. I felt like my whole career was like really, I'm not doing any good. I did Tivoli, I did this, I just felt like when are we going to get to like what we really preach? And I saw these young people talking about a different way, and I mean, it was insane. And then we did some experimentation. We went out, we talked, we implemented. I was at Chef at the time. I was practicing what I preached. And like the empirical data or the evidence to me was that there was something about this new way that included behavior, speed, and resilience. Right? And I knew that, and the early conversations were all about this. In fact, Courtney, like go back and watch like 2014 and 15 of Courtney's Nordstrom and some of the things that she did where she changed the whole way they thought. And so there's lots of organizations that have done this. And what happened was, and one other thing, the DevOps study, Puppet Labs, IT Revolution, right, showed academically rigorous data that proved that this was bullshit. This was the iron triangle. The memory muscle that we've had for years, which was, pick two, or even worse, the reason DevOps started was Dev wants to go fast, Ops needs to slow down. And so out of all of our learnings, what we found is that, there's a new triangle. I love that. I would say it's behavior, but let's just put it as DevOps. It's actually a generative culture, non-pathological, it's blameless, it embraces failure. You get to go faster and be more resilient. And the data shows this. And in fact, the faster you go, the more resilient you get. So it's put to bed. And if you don't believe me, read the study, read the white paper by Jez and Nicole. I'm not white paper, academically submitted paper. And so how did we get here? This was the original Wikipedia, the automated pipeline, right? It's about building gates. We check in code, we automate as much as we can, we automate the pipeline. We build a lot of resilience by kind of, Gene talks about the first way, second way, and third way. First way is about getting through the pipeline as fast, shortening lead time. Second way is kind of telemetry and amplified feedback loops. Well, you amplify feedback loops by gating things. It goes here, red, go back. It goes here, it goes here, it goes here, it hits automated testing, go back. And as this happens over time, and I'm still talking about software, I promise you I'll get to security. You are creating this, whether you want to talk about anti-fragility or you are creating this resilience. But you're creating a cultural immersion of speed resilience. So now I got to go to Toyota. I won't say the D word, I promise. A couple people got that one. So there's some great stories. So Toyota Kata by Mike Rother is an amazing book. Right? And so there's a story in there, well, a couple stories. One is, so the andon cord, I imagine most people know about it, but I'm going to repeat it. It was a rope in Toyota where somebody could, at some point, depending on the timing, pull the rope and stop the automotion, the production of a car line. The first thing that was phenomenal about that culture and why they destroyed the American car companies, I mean, a lot of things, and Rother does the best job of explaining it, is the first thing that would happen is the floor manager would come over before he or she even knew what it was. They said, thank you, because you created a learning opportunity. Right? The fact that you were willing to, so Think about that. Then there's another story in the book where there's a plant in Japan that averages 1,000 andon card pulls a shift, and they go down to 800. So the Western culture, like, yeah, 200 less defects. No. Plant manager, we got a problem. We are learning 200 times less a day. And even better than that, now it's an opportunity to tighten our tolerance. Let's add more of those red things. One more story. I love Toyota stories. So Toyota builds their first plant in Kentucky. Their first, like, all in, we're going to do it by itself. Not the Numi story. After that. At one point, they're producing 2,200 cars a day. And some analysts, this is the folklorish version. There's, who knows what the real, but folklorish version is that an analyst, automobile analyst, like, how do you build 2,200 cars a day? Like, very simple. You pull the andon cord 5,000 times a day. Oh, by the way, this is 4 years ago. Google is that Kentucky plant. And like all the other stuff is cool, and we could geek out about that. But 4 years ago, 75 million tests a day. Wow. Last year, 150 million automated tests a day. That's pulling the andon cord 5,000 times a day. That's how you build resilience. And by the way, I heard somebody, I always steal great things from speakers. If I know the speaker, I give attribution. If I don't know, I just steal it. I can't remember everybody's name. Like, when's the last time you called Google for support? Right? There's something there, right? They're pretty good at infrastructure. So we had DevOps. We got we made the mistake. We didn't Agile. We didn't invite the ops people. Okay, we got that figured out. And this is a James Wickett steal. See, I do give attributes. Here's my dramatic. We forgot to invite security. We did the same thing over again. Oh, you're all idiots. Take my hat back. Right? So, in summary, Agile took us from months to days to deliver software. DevOps took us months to days to deploy software. But security is the bottleneck, and really good timing to pay attention right now. I'll hold off on the Equifax thing, but you got to have an Equifax in a DevOps presentation, especially if it's security. And you know what? I feel bad because Brandon Holcomb can be here this year, and he's been here the last 2 years as a speaker. He works at Equifax. He's done amazing things there. So what are the meta points? It's 30 times cheaper to fix a security defect in dev than in prod. I have all the reference points for this. On average, a breach costs $5 million. We know from the DevOps study that high-performing organizations include security in the software delivery pipeline. And by the way, those 15 lines of code in Node.js that you wrote, there could be 1 million lines of code behind it. One study says that 80-90% of our modern applications exist open source. And by the way, they're alive. I used to love it, Chef. When you start watching the build, and oh my God, who wrote that gem? Kids, some, I mean, nothing to get Chef, Puppet, they all, Ruby. Hey. I don't like Ruby. I don't know. I'm just, it's not, it's, a couple of people, James, I think you were involved in it, but Josh Corman is the first person who comes to mind for this. The Rugged Manifesto. I recognize that my code will be used in ways I cannot anticipate, in ways that are not designed. It was longer than I expected. And I recognize that my code will be attacked by talent and persistent adversaries. Here's the thing. If you ever get to hang out with Shannon Leitz, do it. Pay to hang out. She runs, I think it's 35-person red team at Intuit. How many banks have a 35-person red team? She is the shit on security. I mean that as a compliment. She talks about adversaries, and she explodes my brain. Because the bad guys, I'm not a security person. I'm diving in to be able to be a prophet to maybe help. But she talks about the adversaries, they are working hard, and they are, DevOps got nothing on the adversaries and collaboration. the dark web. Now I'll ask you, how many companies? We probably have 200, 100 companies in this room. How many of you have collaborated about adversarial risks? Do you even know what your adversarial data is per hour? Who's attacking you? How often? And the bad guys are way smarter than y'all are on collaborating when it comes to security. And please come up to me and tell me I'm full of crap if I'm wrong. But I can imagine there's a lot of enterprises in here who are like, hey, let's share notes. Ooh, yeah. So things happen. Gene is obviously a connector. He runs into Josh Corman. I get to hang out with Josh Corman. We did a presentation together a couple of years ago here. And Josh was driving, in my mind, the rugged. And obviously anybody Gene bumps into like explodes, like he's a force multiplier. And so so we had this rugged, and things are happening. Like we're vulnerability scanning, cool. James Wickett wrote something called Gauntlet, like sort of behavior-driven development. There's been a fair amount of tools there, cool. And this is I'm not going to pick at rugged. I'm just going to tell you that rugged was not interesting to me because it seemed like I'll do something here, I'll do something there. When I showed up at RSA this year, and I started people talk about DevSecOps, the first thing I noticed was they were talking about a holistic systems approach to security in the supply chain. And I didn't see that in rugged. An analogy I would make is if I went to a DevOps shop today, and they would, we're doing pretty good DevOps. Can you come in, John, and see how we're doing it? They'd say, well, we don't do anything in source control. And that Jenkins thing just like throws error messages all the time. But we do behavior-driven development, and and you'd be like, what the hell? But like that's the way security looks at almost every company that I visit. Like, we do this, what do you do here? We don't really do anything here. So the first thing I was involved with was a discussion on implementing DevOps in a regulated where like security was like top, right? And I won't go into detail because this is like the extreme case. But like, are you doing threat modeling in design? I'm going to give you a much simpler example here. But security requirements, are you doing static code analysis in your development phase, in your CI? Are you doing dynamic pen testing, all those things? All right. Anybody know what this is? It's a really unfair question. Stretch 2, who said that? I like that guy, even before he said that. I mean, I'm not here to make fun of Equifax. I really am. I think that's a counterfactual. I think us looking back and saying, oh my God, like, the question is, I'll lose time, but what's your true north as an organization? What do you say that you do? So I know a company that gives out loans. And so I may have the dates wrong, but this Stretch 2 came out like on March 7th. And the patch was like 2 days later. But the signature wasn't out for a little bit. And this loan company was on their web pages, we put people in houses. This is our true north. And so the woman who ran AppSec was another like insanely cool person that I've gotten to hang out with. Knew that this was a catastrophe on that Friday. Because like she could have put the patch in and anything moving forward, but she knew that there was all stuff out there. Where is it? Is it in WebSphere? Is it in some device? I don't know. Because we're not really good at knowing that, I got to tell you. But she went ahead and went to the senior executives and said, like, if we're really this on our webpage, then the only solution I can tell you that we have to do right now is shut down the loan application. She pulled the andon cord. And like her management on Friday, like I don't know that industry too well, but I think a lot of loans get on the weekend. That's when I always buy my houses. That sounded. I blame it on my wife. Every time I sell a company, new house. I'm like, oh, damn, Gotta stop selling companies. This is fun, right? So they shut it down. So there's one thing for the AppSec person to say, hey, I'm calling bullshit. There's another thing for the leadership to say, okay. So she wrote a script like this. This isn't the script. Because this is the struts too. And she hit, and you think, oh, just a simple script. All she did was read Etsy password. And she had every URL in the company over the weekend, and it took time, and there were people screaming at her. There were, just imagine the chaos. By Sunday night, she'd identified every place that this parsing routine, which is a routine in Search 2, and mitigated it up on Friday. So it's not the technology. And so this, they think, okay, like, I think the rugged, like, I'm not, okay, have fun, you guys. And then I started seeing this holistic approach, and I'm like, I like to think like this. And like, I don't have to know security that well. I just get to find out who Shannon Leitz is and this woman, and I learn really fast. And so, like, I'm just saying this is the DevOps thing. And you can throw any type of boxes that you want. This is just my simple, because I'm just trying to make a box point. And so the products, I just picked one. I purposely didn't pick Chef because I'm an investor in Chef. All right? So you got Eclipse, you got GitHub, you got Jenkins, you got Selenium, you got Ansible, and you somehow get to prod or stage. Right? That's what we do, DevOps. So all I'm asking is like, I want you to think about every box from a security perspective. Do your developers know what the security of what app did that AppSec woman knew? Do you have training? Don't just send them to OWASP. I mean, no, I don't want to offend anybody who has worked on the website of OWASP, but it sucks. Your first pull down, you want to basically start sticking, hitting yourself with sticks or something. Like, that's not the place where you send the developers. What you do is you translate that stuff to your own wiki. Speak in their language about the importance of the stuff there's an OWASP top 10. This loan company has a GitHub repo of all the right ways to code to mitigate the OWASP top 10. The developers show up at the story mapping. They're part of the requirements. They have IDEs, they have plugins in Eclipse that scan for vulnerabilities. This is real simple stuff. There's a ton of products open. You can do this whole thing open source too, by the way. There's find bugs, so you can, the minute it gets committed, you basically can search there. In the build, you could go nuts, right? Sonatype, JFrog, right? All the things. You got Veracode. You got like a lot of things. And so the point is, the thing that, like, if you think about Gene's 3 ways, the second way is amplify feedback loop. We could also call it shift left. But you cannot shift left if all the boxes aren't secured. So if how can you, there's nothing there. I guess I can't shift left. Right, because what are we trying to do? We're trying to get anything we can understand down here as early as we can here. And we need to have that holistic approach. And I beg of you to make sure that you have something in every box. And the security people, instead of telling them or saying, oh, here they come, they're the people that need to come and do this with you. And so, I've seen some great examples. General rule, the security people are the only people who make the CloudFormation or Terraform templates. Interesting. That's it. They create them all. They create the cookbooks. Interesting. Like, that's a nice little head fake thing. Like, they get an added bonus. They get to learn a little about your world. Like, they catch things you don't. Security wiki, don't have a bug system for security and a bug system for what your software. A bug is a bug is a bug is a bug. Like, if you think a security bug is different from a software bug, like, even saying that sounds silly. Visualize things, have Git repos, have wikis, create sandboxes so the developers can, like, oh my goodness. And so another thing that, like, I find this is really interesting. You go talk to somebody and they have a pretty secure mindset about AppSec and the delivery of kind of behind the firewall services and library scanning, and some are better than others, some are holistic, some hit hit all the, some of the really good buttons, like don't let struts 2 get through. But then you go talk to another team, and they're like the cloud folk. And then you ask them about configuration management, like, why? Why would we keep that in GitHub? Why would we go ahead and, and by the way, the NSA breach, I've learned a lot. The NSA breach was basically, they got in through an external-facing Amazon VPC. They hit the old struts 2. They were able to get into a default installed Jenkins on the inside one. This is a kill chain. On the inside one, once they were able to run a script under a default installed Jenkins, they basically created an Amazon account, scanned S3, and they got all of NSA. And NSA was a little bit lazy, I guess, because they left a lot of stuff laying around in S3 buckets, and that's how all that data got out there. I mean, it's a real kill chain. So like configuration managed, like like somebody might go out to Stack Exchange and do a cut and paste of a VPC definition. Like it worked. Yeah, but those like the 2 ones that you didn't know, right? So I'm going to a little fast because I want to end with a real meta point. These slides will be variable and all that good stuff, and then we can talk about containers. Like you need to think about your policy containers. Containers can be way more secure if you flip the narrative. Don't inherit in the wild. Create your own base images, XYZ base. Run some type of product to make sure that any container running is already a policy-based container. So people say, oh my God, containers, this Docker's so dangerous, John. I'm like, why? Because you can pull any image off the internet and run it in production. I'm like, you're an idiot if you do that. Like there's this thing called Scratch. You say from Scratch, then you say XYZ base, and then you say Java from XYZ Java, and then you run some type of policy thing that Twistlock does a pretty good job of that. You can do this open source project. Again, I want to get to my meta, vulnerability scanning, port restrictions, scan for secrets. That looks like a password. I'm going to read it. I'm going to kill it. You didn't tokenize it. And oh, by the way, like serverless, they don't need us. They really don't need DevOps. I've been to 2 serverless keynotes, and like, John, do we need DevOps with serverless? I'm not going to say anymore. All the things are relevant. There's more configurations where you can make a mistake. All right, so here's all the things and the things and the things. Because I want to, and then Google me. I have a whole presentation on DevOps Kaizen that I've been working on with Damon for quite a while. I think we got a pretty good model of how you can think about improving an environment and thinking about it. I don't want to be sales pitchy, but I want to get to my meta. I only got 2 minutes. So what did I say earlier? All right, so I was at a cybersecurity conference 2 weeks ago. And there was an anonymous hacker who gave the story of a hacker. They had hoodie, all this stuff. It was on video. And he was talking about, out of the 5 breaches that he's done in banks, 4 of them he got in because somebody held the door open for him. As soon as he gets in, like 4 of them he got in for holding the door. And at one point he said, it was like we were idiots. This guy had never worked in the enterprise, right? How many times have you tried to let the door slam and gotten yelled at? And if you're doing that for 10 years, I see the smiles, right? You give up. Diane Vaughn calls it the normalization of deviance, right? So you just give up. It's hard to get yelled at. So he said that your people are your worst enemy. And I thought, and I'm about to present that afternoon with this slide. Wait a minute, no! Our people are our greatest asset. What's wrong here? And then I'm going to have to steal a minute. So I don't know if you ever read Bill Bryson, and so Bill Bryson had, he's hilarious, but he has this thing where he talks about the history of everything in science, and he says there's a moment in time when 2 sailors are killing the last 2 dodo birds on the planet for fun, and at the same time Newton is finishing Principia, and he says in it, to me it's the greatest one line in any book I've ever read. It's about a middle. He said, you would be hard-pressed, I would submit, to find a better pairing of occurrences that illustrate the divine and felonious nature of human beings. And so here's the thing I'm going to do with 15 seconds left. You could buy $1 billion worth of perimeter security. You could buy every product on earth. If I told you that hacker told that he got in the place because he tailgated. Imagine the day in your corporation. I'm there. I've been working at 10 years. It is raining. It is freezing. Susie is pregnant and she's got 4 boxes. And she's a step behind you, right? And you let the door slam. And then you wait, because surely you're going to help her. But you had to let the door slam. And you know you're going to get, oh man, she's going to kill me. And she looks up, she badges in, and she says, thank you. You just made us a stronger, safer company. And then you help her get the boxes to her thing. I'm done. Thank you.